Hello, beautiful people. So I had a great afternoon and I want to share that with you today because it's an important message as always. I feel anyway. So this afternoon I supported in my bereavement support group a bunch of people, half a dozen people turned up today, which was really beautiful. But as always, my heart goes out to them because they're all fresh in grieving and hurting. But it was so beautiful to witness the group as they come together and shared their stories, because their stories become healing stories for each and every one of them. One, they'd feel a little less alone on their journey. And each person's story, which I find is very powerful, and why I really encourage this, is each person's story gives permission for someone else, one, to share their story, but through each of their experiences, they each have different learnings. And so they were all kind of offering each other support and encouragement. It was really beautiful. But it also brought up the matters of life and death. And the people that I supported were my age and above, 55 and above. And this is my message today. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of making sure we get our affairs in order. Because when we don't, we just create a lot of drama and stress, particularly when we are grieving and thrusted into some sudden deaths, as it was. Some very quick ones, literally. One moment someone was fighting fit and healthy, and in 6 weeks passed away. All experiences are different, but this became a common theme that they were all expressing. The amount of stress, additional stress, on top of their grieving, that they were all moving through, having to navigate, getting all of the finalization of their deceased loved ones. Lots of little things, but also finding out, all the little things that their partners had done in and around the home that they're all realizing now that they now have to do. Things that they had never even considered doing, because we kind of in relationships have our roles, don't we? We kind of sort of slot into who takes out the bins, who does any account keeping, who does the dishes, who does anything within the home, right? All of that becomes a one person's role. But the navigating of especially accounts with services and closing of that and so forth, when nothing has been prepared for, as in having the matters of all of our affairs in order, when none of this has been prepared and organized, there's just stress. But the stress is just constant triggers, because what the triggers are is, for one person, they kept, because the way that their partner died, there's a particular ad on TV that talks about this illness, and it's a trigger for them. So they don't watch TV, or try not to, because they didn't realize how often this ad came up talking about I guess, looking after our health in a particular area. I'm just trying to be confidential to people's information by not saying what was expressed today. And so that was a trigger, a constant trigger. I had the same triggers actually when things came up in my space after my son had died. But there was one particular trigger for me, was when one day I had police knocking on my door, and that was about, I think, a year down the track, maybe 2 years down the track. Didn't know it was a thing. But when the police rocked up one day knocking on my door, I immediately was taken back to that day when that happened, when my son actually, when the news was being passed to me about my son dying by the police service. So that was an absolute trigger. I nearly died on the spot when I had the police, when I opened the door, because I thought immediately, my brain went to, oh my God, what's happened to my other son? So triggers, and they had plenty of them. And it's just that process of moving through the grief, moving through all of these triggers, but you don't realize it's a trigger until it actually comes knocking on your door. So they were sharing about the different triggers, sharing about how stressful it is when a service calls, not knowing that the service not knowing that this particular person has died. The partner answers the phone and they're asking for their deceased loved one, and now they've got to have that conversation. My husband has died, or my wife has died, and you've got to go through this conversation, and it's really awkward. And I had those conversations too. So we spoke about all these things, but the common theme that they were all expressing in hindsight was the very fact that they wished they had all of their affairs in order. One, so that they could make better choices with the preferences and the wishes for their loved ones, because some of them didn't know what their loved ones wanted in particular areas for their health, support and needs and decisions in that space. Some didn't know whether they wanted their body cremated or a natural burial. Some were so sudden that they didn't get the choice because their partner died when they were overseas on a holiday, and then they had to return home without their partner. And a big one with, again, all of them today was trying to close accounts. And when you're trying to close accounts, just the annoying process with services who are just doing their job, who are unawares, of our circumstances, and just having to go through that process when accounts are not in both names, for example, or perhaps it's with a child and an adult child, as it was for me. Services just won't hand over freely, give access to accounts, because we've gotten so far down the track with scammers and stuff that there's such a level of security. So we need to know all the passwords and the email accounts and all the telephone numbers connected to things, and that's just one area. And all of them said that's been the worst for them because they never knew any passwords to accounts. They never knew, just all that stuff. And so this message today even after speaking with a fellow colleague, so to speak, in the same space as myself, we agreed only the other day how 95% of the population will not plan or talk about death and dying. And it's a huge problem, because whilst the person who is deceased doesn't have to deal with it, everybody that is left behind does. And they're the ones grieving. They're the ones hurting. They're the ones with broken hearts, trying to make decisions, stressful decisions, important decisions, back and forth with services and government services and the likes, trying to close accounts and do whatever is necessary, all while they're in a huge amount of grief. And the emotions, it just gets too much. And some of them reach breaking point. So if not for you, that you would get your affairs in order, please consider doing it, so that if you were to pass before a loved one, especially a partner, make it easier for them, because they're going to be going through so much stress, so much sadness, and so much heartbreak, and they don't need the additional weight of all of these final affairs. Today ended in lots of hugs, lots of commitment that we're all coming back together next month, even to the point where I'm going to organise a little nature walk for all of them. And so they all had a little bit of peace in their heart. We all shared hugs, we all shared stories, we shared all of our experiences. And as one man said, one thing he's realised is he's gained a lot of wisdom from this experience. And so have I. And that's why I'm here, to encourage all of you, my fellow brothers, sisters, and soul brothers, sisters. Please consider starting the conversations. And they can be fun. You can make it fun to start the conversations. I know some people don't want to talk about it. I've had people actually say to me, I want to talk about it with my family, but they shut it down. I've actually got a client who has expressed that to me. And so all I've been able to do is just say, well, let's get all of your wishes on paper. And I said, and I just reassure them that at least if they can get that part done, I'm 100% sure that their wishes will be honoured. So you may not get to talk to loved ones, but what you can do is at least get what you want on paper. I can help you with that, to guide that process. I will do that freely. So if you want to reach out, please reach out, because I would do that for you. Thank you for listening. Namaste.